So that's why I put it on this agenda, because I did not get correspondence from him, but it suggested that this is a Park and Rec Commission item. So as far as you guys being committee members, do you have a problem if I make a motion to refer this to the Park and Rec Commission? So I'll do that. I refer item number 2, a surveillance camera for the Wisconsin Rapids Skate Park. I refer that to the Park and Rec Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rayo. Motion on the floor and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries.
I just had a question.
Yeah,
Do we have camera systems going in the aquatic center?
Yes.
Is there something that they can be tied together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Item number 3, review and consider approving storm water options for 21st Place. And this is one thing that we had on the agenda a couple months ago, and I got a call from a resident who had suggested that reminded me that I had suggested that we would retake this item up. I did contact the Waterworks and Lighting Utility, and they gave me some figures about how high the well levels are. And it was kind of interesting because in a brief conversation, I'm trying to bring this item up. It was suggested that the municipal well levels have been the highest ever recorded in the utility's history. So it's a case where we do have a tremendous amount of groundwater. The elevation of groundwater is rather high. And the email from the director at Waterworks and Lighting, it says, below the information that I gathered relating to the yearly precipitation recorded at Alexander Field Weather Station, the data was recorded on a yearly summary from September 22nd to September 22nd of the previous year. The second table is data recorded during monitoring well testing every third week in September for the last 20 years. The monitoring well is located at 20th Street South and 2 Mile Avenue, which is the closest monitoring point 1,500 feet from 21st Place South and Airport Avenue. If you need additional information or would prefer to be this summarized in an official memo report, please let me know. And I didn't indicate that. He's got some figures here, and it does indicate that this year the groundwater level elevation at 110 feet, 110.98 feet is the highest ever recorded. So it's a case where, I mean, is this a stormwater issue or is it a groundwater issue? And I know that the people on 21st Place that were concerned about a stormwater issue because there is no curb and gutter on that particular 1 block length.
There is curb and gutter.
There is curb and there is
It's
curb
just-
and gutter, but there is no storm.
There is storm,
There is storm.
but I'm sorry, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Blake.
And I guess Joe will probably speak more, but it drains to a pond. It's not hooked into the system, so it drains to a pond. Now, I wasn't aware, and maybe somebody could tell me that, does that drain into a pond on city-owned property or is that private property?
It's both.
Because I got an email from a resident there that's saying that, you know, that obviously the property's for sale, or he's stating that it's for sale, and now we have a storm pond on, I guess, technically private property, and if it would sell and somebody wants to build a house there, I wouldn't think they would want a storm pond on their property. I'm not sure. I wasn't aware of that.
Where's the pond?
Between, it's west of 21st Place, south or north of Airport.
North of Airport.
So like, you know where Don Bemke lives?
Yeah.
Across the street behind the houses there.
So in the right of way for the Highway 54 corridor?
I think partially through there, yeah. So I guess one of the concerns is that we have a pond on private property that's for sale. And at some point are we going to be forced to connect somehow to the system? Now, as Joe and I talked to, the groundwater issue, I don't think storm system is going to correct that because we have record highs. It has nothing to do with anything that I believe the city's doing or snow piles. You know, people all the way to the east there, I know have same issues. So the solution, I don't think, is what we're doing, whether we're piling snow somewhere or or even, I don't even know if the storm pond has any effect on it. But I guess my concern now would be is that storm if it's on private property. Just my thoughts.
Where
Is it on private property?
So I don't have the legal descriptions of the properties to validate 100% for sure, but our record drawings from when the infrastructure was built show a 75-foot stormwater and setback easement. So from the future highway, there's a 75-foot setback easement along the entire corridor.
Oh.
And then specific for this area, there's supposed to be a stormwater provision attached to that easement.
So if somebody would purchase that property, it's already, they're purchasing the property knowing that there's an easement for stormwater
Yeah.
for the Highway 54 corridor.
We can verify that with a title search or.
But yeah, okay.
That's interesting. I don't even see where the pond would be on the.
So in the aerial photo, it is dry, but if you type in, if you're in City Viewer and you look for like 2910 second or 21st place south, that's where the pond would show up.
On, so the green lines are the storm sewer pipes that discharge and check ponds.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, John.
Well, and it's also a case, like you mentioned, Mr. Blazer, again, it references outside of the committee meeting, but 3 of the job sites that I'm on are literally underwater. One of them actually, in fact, for the foundation work, has got a very sophisticated drain tile / well pumping system because of the amount of groundwater that we're experiencing right now. And this record rainfall too, and that we're getting last couple weeks into today, into the rest of the week, isn't helping anything either. So then the question is, what kind of groundwater operation or mitigation can the city employ? And if this is a case where although private sump pumps are running, what can we ultimately do, depending upon what kind of overburden we have and where the bedrock is, and basically where the water table is. But with that, with none of the residents here, I think that maybe we could have an advocacy and find out again what their specific concerns, if it's actually like getting to the point where it's damaging their basement, or if it's just a case where they've got pumps running. As a city standpoint, I think that we would want to look into something if this is a prolonged type of an issue, but on the other hand, this could also be an issue of climate change. We are experiencing different things. Montana just got dumped with, 4 feet of snow, and stuff is changing. And I alluded to this in the last meeting, that behind my mom's house, or my folks' house, there was kind of a swamp, and that's been dry for the last 20 years, and now there is a swamp with tadpoles and different things. So it's stuff is changing right now, and I don't know what kind of mechanisms that we could employ in the short term to do this. In the long term, we could, especially going into budget season, maybe look at either hiring a firm or some other mechanisms to address this issue. But I also do agree with Mr. Blazer that I don't think that it's just these detention ponds and putting snow over that area. It's more of an absolute groundwater situation.
Is this a condition that exists year-round?
As far as I know, I don't think so, because and Mr. Blazer, I know you had communication more with
This past year has just been wet, very wet.
some people have lived there for 7, 8 years, and this is the first time they've experienced the amount of water coming into their sumps. So, and we did have quite a large amount of snowfall this past winter too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this might not be the only situation. Well, this might be not the only place that they have that problem in the city.
this might be the beginning
It might
of
be.
other people having a
Right.
groundwater issue.
Right.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
So I guess why don't we hold it over till next month, and I'll have communication with the residents. sure after this next couple days of rain, we'll have some feedback.
Absolutely. And and that'll be perfect because that'll kind of run into budget season. I know Mr. Colt has scheduled a special finance meeting or a future finance meeting for specifically budgetary issues. So with that, I'll make a motion to postpone this till the next regularly scheduled committee meeting.
Take motion to that effect.
You make the motion, I'll second that. Motion on the floor, second, to postpone approving stormwater sewer options for 21st place it on the next regularly scheduled committee meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We will go to item number 4. Review and consider approving changes to the lawn mowing practices and procedure on a city-owned boulevard at the south side of the expressway between Lincoln Street and First Street South. And this is a carryover item from last month. And I believe, Mr. Blazer, you had initiated discussion on that last time. Actually, did we have a referral?
I guess I didn't realize that we had further discussion on it.
I think we made the motion to vest staff with the authority to look into this to find out potential options.
I don't remember.
What, is this the only place we're thinking about? Is that across from the hospital?
I guess I'm the one passionate about that because I think it looks very horrible. I'm not
Yeah.
sure of any other places in the community that
Well,
are
okay.
cut off, but
Can I make a statement or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was thinking about this, and I drove by there a number of times. The mowers that the park department has, they can't mow it. But we should check and see, the airport has got a 15-foot mower that sits out there 99% of the time. It's only about a half mile away. And I'm just wondering if they could mow that with that big 15-foot mower. They don't have to spend about 2 hours a month, really, by the time they get down there and cut it and get back to the airport. We're a owner of the part of the airport. To me, it doesn't seem like we should spend a lot of money for a mower just to take care of that area, when we might have equipment available that can do the work. So I'd like to see someone, the mayor's head of the commission of the airport, I guess. Maybe he can find out if that mower out there could be used for that purpose. It would save the city some money, I think.
Even if we had to rent it for our portion of it, we, have some type of negotiation. Obviously, it's just accounting practices, charging one account versus another account because it's a commission. But I agree with you. I'd like to look into that too, Mr. Blazer.
But I was going to just follow up with it. Yeah, I agree, but I think the potential issue might be the reason why we can't use our mowers is because of the safety, because the safety switches on them.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if we might be in the same situation with the airport, but it would definitely be worth asking.
Well, I looked at that area and I don't think it's much more than 30 feet wide, the area that he'd have to cut, maybe 40 at the most. Squat up and squat back and they'd have to cut.
Yeah, I'm all for any way to cut it. I don't want to take my string trimmer out there and do it myself.
I got one. I just bought a new one. Should we get together? Do we got to notice that meeting if we're together? String trimming that hill. Do you want to make a motion to ask the mayor to take it to airport commission?
Yes, I'd make a motion to that effect.
All right, I'll second that. Motion on the floor and second to ask the mayor to address utilizing the commission's lawnmower for the hill on the south side of the expressway from Lincoln Street to First Street South. Any further discussion? Mr. Ayo, you've been kind of...
Just have to, I think, check if it's the safety part of it. If it can be used, could be used on a hill like that, and obviously that, well, with the mayor, being part of the commission, I guess, you have to go through the commission as far as, us probably using it even, you know. So it'd probably have to be on their commission agenda at some point in time.
Well, the mayor's a good guy. I'm sure he'll get it on the commission agenda, so.
Just to say that, I guess, so.
Thank you, thank you. Motion on the floor, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll move on to item number 5, review and update the creation of an ad hoc committee to oversee a citizen-sponsored tree replacement initiative for the Robinson Park and other areas of the city from the aftermath of the catastrophic storm that occurred last July. The reason why this is on the agenda again is because I wanted to find out if there was, I think we referred it to the Park and Rec Commission to allow them to have their own agenda item, create their own ad hoc committee, but I don't know if it was on their agenda or not. So if it's not on their agenda, I want to make sure that we refer it back to their agenda again.
Yeah, I think that's where it's appropriate.
No, that's where it should be.
But the question is, was it taken up? And I don't.
You talk about Robinson Park right now, I'm trying to scratch my head on
What's out there?
what we all talked about, and I know, but we all, what was all talked about, they didn't discuss that, forming a committee. I did mention it, I did bring it up because I was there that day, but they did not take action on forming a committee, so they did discuss the park though, thoroughly.
Give me a call, I call you tomorrow.
Personally, I think that if they do not create that, that's well within our scope of the Public Works Committee to set an ad hoc committee in motion for replacing the trees there. So I'll make a motion to postpone this till next time to evaluate if the Park and Rec Commission does so create, and if not, in the meantime, then at the next meeting, I'll make a motion to create an ad hoc committee. So right now, my motion on the floor is.
Finish your motion.
My motion on the floor is to postpone this item till the next regularly scheduled committee.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just looked at their agenda, the only thing they had was regarding a discuss Robinson Park long range plan. So nothing about creating a committee.
No.
Did we actually have the referral? Because it was, I think we made a motion to refer it to the park. Yeah, because you were there, Mr. Kellogg, yeah. And I think you made the motion and I seconded there. So, yeah, so if they don't, we'll keep it on. If they don't put it on there, then we'll take appropriate action. So motion on the floor, is there a second?
No, second.
Second, to postpone item number 5 till the next regularly scheduled Public Works Committee meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We will go on to item number 6.
I'll try to get a hold of the Park and Rec chairman to have him put that on, I guess specifically.
Thank you. Item number 6, refer and consider approving a program to pick up large garbage items that do not fit within the totes. Mr. Kellogg, I apologize if you have taken concern with me putting this on the agenda, but I didn't hear directly from you, so it's one of those cases where if I left it on here, we can always talk about it. If I took it off, and then you said, why did you take it off? I don't want to be, the fault of that. So it's a case where if it's too early, too ripe, then we can move on to the next item, but otherwise, if you got...
I just want to set the stage. I think it's a discussion that should take several months, to be honest, because you don't want to make a plan and then have unintended consequences of how do we pick this up or cost. But I've been discussing this periodically with Joe over the last few years. I had it on the agenda at one time after Ward 1 did a cleanup and so forth. And actually, about 2 weeks ago, one of my constituents who owns rentals brought up the concern that, where a person moves and a large amount of trash is on the curb, and it might happen throughout the month, but usually it's the first of the month that people leave a location or move. And then the idea is that, what about, like, for example, in the last 3 weeks on 18th Avenue, there's 4 mattresses out on the curb for, I think, over a couple weeks. And on Witter, there's a couch on the side of a home. Coming back from Metallico event today, I saw a blue couch sitting on the curb on Washington. I saw padding that goes below carpeting in a home in the back of a yard north of the expressway. All I'm saying is that we got this new program, and I think there's going to be a result of people putting things on the side of their home, backyards. So it's just going to be a mess in time. And I don't know what a solution would be. It's easy to come up with a problem, but maybe, for example, if it's 2 weeks of the year, where we might hire part-time people because of our staffing and so forth, where it's like the library. If you have books out for several years, they'll say, oh, bring it in and you don't have to pay a fine. It's the same idea, that if you have these items maybe this week or this week of the year, you put it out and we'll pick it up. Because you have senior citizens, you have people that just, or rentals, and people just put it in their backyard. And will we have a problem later on if we don't brainstorm as to what are potential solutions for it? I even looked at a city in Canada. This is a little bit off, okay, but they have an exchange weekend where if people have goods that are decent, they put it on the curb that weekend. It has to be off the curb on Monday, but people pick it up and they use it. If I was a young family, I need a crib, there's a crib. If I like to refurbish furniture and pick up something, I could refurbish it and have it as a garage sale. I mean, we have solar panels at the library. We have a new business here with recycling aluminum. It's a concept of energy saving, but I think if we just sit back and say, there's not just one silver bullet. I think there's a combination of things we could do and take some time and plan it. I think it could be interesting. And we got the winter months coming up, that if we just take some time and get it, maybe it's a Haddock committee, or a group to get together of some citizens and rental owners of rentals and so forth, ideas that might be advantageous that we could consider. And then if we are going to do something with the budget coming up, I don't know what it would look like or sound like, because you would have to develop something over the winter months, but put some funds in there for some program. If it's hiring, like I said, if you have 2 weeks of the year where we would hire part-time people to help, or summer help in the summer would be one of them. We could contract it, you know. But I'd like to begin the discussion, and like I said, just because of the ramifications, it's complex and there's a cost to it. We should take our time and do it right. So I just wanted to plant the seed and share that with you, that I think it's something we should entertain over the next few months and come up with a plan.
Absolutely, I applaud your concern with this, and when any new program is implemented, unintended consequences occur. And if this is a case where not only can we reduce how much we're paying in tipping fees by using the totes, but also create another mechanism where there's a reuse program. And obviously and I've alluded to this in the past with my doctoral program, it's educational sustainability. If we can also remove stuff out of the landfill, bigger items, and have an entrepreneurial aspect that someone else could reuse it and maybe make money, refurbish something, that's a win-win-win situation with everything. So no, I agree with you 100%. And this, how about this? This is something that we can kind of keep on the back burner, but it's something that I definitely believe that we need to continue talking about to move forward to create an actual sustainable program that'll work for that.
For spring.
Mr. Blazer.
I actually received a call on this from a resident last week, and I don't know if he referenced Wausau just had a pickup program or some program, so I don't think this is new to us. My concern, obviously, I don't think we should be cleaning up after rentals, because that's notorious for loading up the side of the street there.
Charge them.
Yeah, because that's, I think if you're going to own rental property, that's something you have to accept. But this gentleman was talking about a couch, I explained to him about how, we're lucky to have a landfill right here where a lot of people don't have that. He said, well, I'm elderly and And so I don't think this is new to any community, and so there might be something out there, but yeah, I think it's worth looking into. I don't think we should be buying equipment and having trucks here.
Right.
I don't think we should be, because I don't think that's really a good service to the community for, the cost. But we can't be the only one faced with this. So I don't know if there's something out there, or if Joe's heard of something in his research when we switched over to the system, but it would be nice to get rid of that roll of carpeting and that keep our neighborhoods looking nice, and mattresses somehow. But I don't think we need to have a open-end garbage truck on our staff here to, or even contract it or something.
Mr. Terry?
So there, the concept that we had discussed when we were looking at developing this CART program was to something similar to what Oshkosh does, and what that is it's a pay-to-play.
Yep.
If there's a set fee, I think in Oshkosh they do $125. If you can't get rid of some of the stuff, you can schedule an appointment, city will come and collect it. The logistics for that would be to be determined, but when I really didn't think there'd be an issue with that. It's a la carte, right? It's not the city mandating a service and charging a fee for it. It's an elective service that you charge a fee for. The finance director ran that past the state, and the state said no. Now, I don't believe that that's how those rules were designed to be implemented when they were implemented back in 2010-ish or whatever. A municipality that charges a fee for garbage collection can continue to charge a fee for garbage collection, but a municipality that doesn't charge a fee for garbage collection can't do so unless they reduce that from their levy. So that really prohibited the city from offering additional levels of service to those that might need it, doing programs like this. I would think that sooner or later, the same call to the state may result in a different answer, because again, it's people interpreting things. And the rules haven't changed, but it seems that depending on who's in charge of that particular office, their interpretation of the rules has been a little inconsistent. So I don't think we should not stop trying that method. I mean, again, I really think that wasn't the intent, and there may be some opportunities there. The other thing I thought I'd mention is for folks that when you see stuff set out that's not supposed to be out, use that Wisconsin Rapids app if you can on your mobile device or your computer, or call it in. If that goes through our ordinance control program and it's deemed a nuisance, then the city can go pick it up and charge, and potentially they'll receive a citation for it. But those items aren't supposed to be sitting next to a garage or a house. That's an ordinance violation as the ordinance is currently written. So there are some things that we can currently do if people are seeing that. Use that C-Click Fix app if you've got a mobile device, or call our code enforcement department and get it on the list so that we can start addressing that with those residents directly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're intentionally. I think right now people are used to a service that's been provided for years, and now what do I do? Not thinking about maybe their neighbor or a family member, but they may not have somebody. But I struggle with that they're doing it intentionally. They are violating the ordinance, but I think people just don't know what to do with it now.
If they're putting it out though, we are leaving them a note.
Oh, okay.
So they're being informed that,
good.
that we don't.
Good, at least, right. That's good to hear. That makes me happy.
So if there's no further discussion, we'll keep discussion going with this, and either keep this on the referral list or even just put it as an agenda item to review and update, not necessarily consider anything in terms of approval until we get to the point of approving it. How does that sound, Mr. Keller?
Sounds great.
Good, good. With that being said, we'll go to item number 7, review and consider approving a change to the sidewalk assessment levied against property owners. And Mr. Brzezinski, you had brought that one up.
Yeah, I believe, maybe my memory isn't as good as it used to be, that at one time, maybe Tom can remember this, that the city paid for the entire cost of sidewalk. It was many, many years ago, but I think the city paid for it. And the property owner was responsible for the maintenance of the sidewalk. Sidewalk is not a good program for property owners because, number one, the sidewalk is not on private property, it's on city property, it's on city right of way. Number two, the city now wants the property owner to pay 100% of the cost. Property owners really don't need sidewalk in front of their house. They need sidewalk from the curb to the front door, or they need sidewalk from their driveway to the door. Number three, if the sidewalk is installed in front of their property, the property owner has to maintain it. Number four, if they don't shovel the snow off of it, the city comes and shovels the snow and charges them for it. And number five, if somebody falls on that sidewalk, they don't sue the city, they sue the property owner. And number six, if the property owner wants to protect himself, he has to have an umbrella insurance and pay for the premium. So sidewalk is not good for a property owner, not in front of their property. From the curb to their front door it is. It's a necessity for visitors, for the mailman, for the paper boy. I would like to see a program where, and I don't think we can solve this tonight, I think we need some time to study this and probably come up with a program by next spring. I just think that we have to come up with something that's acceptable to the property owners and is acceptable to the city. Maybe we have to come up with a program where the property owner requests it. We won't put sidewalk in unless the property owner requests it. Now, as far as a necessity, in my particular area, if the city would have approached us 35 years ago and said, we want to put sidewalk in front of your place, I think the property owners would have bought it. Because in my block alone, we had 11 kids walking to school. In the block next to us, there was 8 kids that walked to school. Today, in my block, there's 1 kid walking to school, and I talked to the mother, she doesn't want sidewalk. In the next block, I don't think there's any kids that walk to school. So, where there was probably a need 30, 35 years ago, those kids are all grown up and gone and probably even moved out of the city. Today we don't have that need, I don't think. So I just feel that we should give this some thought. We should work on it. And I would like to see at this point the city declare I don't know what you want to call it, but not put up any sidewalk in anymore this year. First of all, it's getting too late in the year, and secondly, we got to have some time to take a look at this. I don't think we have to have a snap judgment as to what we're going to do. I think it's going to take some time to think about this.
It's a pleasure.
I guess maybe I'm a little on the opposite side of the coin. I live in a city because I want sidewalks or the ability to walk on a sidewalk, and maybe in 20 years from now when your neighborhood passes on or moves out, that you might have another 11 kids that come in there. It might be good to have sidewalks. we had all the sidewalk installed by me, and I see people using it all the time, and I've walked my dog down that sidewalk. I don't have to walk on the road anymore. I'm kind of in favor of sidewalks. Whether or not it's needed on both sides, I'd be up for that. I do like having at least one side, just for people. And honestly, I think everybody, or a lot of people probably don't want sidewalks if they have to pay for it now, but if you got sidewalks, I myself would have been happy to pay for sidewalks in front of my house, because it stops like not far from me. But my kids didn't have sidewalks to learn how to ride a bike on a busy road and those type of things. And I think I was at a disadvantage because that's where I chose to live, not realizing down the road that kids would want to play on the sidewalk or have that use instead of staying in the driveway. But I'm open to looking at things or looking at, and I think in the ordinance, doesn't it determine, like, based on the type of road it is, or whether or not it gets sidewalks or not, kind of thing?
That's correct.
And that would be my only, because I don't see a lot of roads where we really need sidewalks, but I think some of the main roads that we use, it could be a safety thing.
Mr. Keller.
In my district, there's a tremendous number of slabs being replaced. I have 8 slabs in front of my home, and there's a young man next door that's handicapped, and he has a person that walks him throughout the neighborhood. And I don't know, in the 3rd district, there's quite a few, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent over the last 2 years just to replace those slabs. Like I had, like I said, 7 or 8 in front of my home just this last week, and there's some on Witter that's going in if you go past those. And they have to be put in because, again, someone's going to trip on it, they're cracked, they're old, it's an older district. But they're very functional and people use them all the time, walking their dogs and so forth in a neighborhood such as ours. So I just want to make those comments because as a taxpayer, I'm going to have to be paying for those slabs. So is it retroactive if we decide later? I mean, you know, when do we decide this? And
You can move in front of my house.
yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one thing that I kind of thought about in front of my house. I live on a corner lot, kind of behind McDonald's back in there, and I don't, there's a lot of people that walk in the road. In Miller Street, actually, it's on the corner of 6th Street and Miller Street. Miller Street is actually kind of the main thoroughfare. Otherwise, Pepper would be on the south side, and Daly would be on the north side of the whole block for people to cut through from 7th Street to 6th Street. So Miller is pretty busy, but with the lack of sidewalks, it hasn't deterred anybody from walking in on the side of the road or anything. But yeah, I'm open for talking about anything. You know, if we can address concerns, if it's a part of town that may not need it, or if it's, because I know down by your district, Mr. Kellogg, that there is a lot of people that walk down there, and there is more business, I guess, kind of. But on the other hand, by my place off of 8th Street, there's business there, but the business is kind of a little bit different situated.
Yeah.
It's not really like a neighborhood business like East and West Grand. With 8th Street, it's kind of a little bit faster thoroughfare. But yeah, I mean, if it's a case where we can look at not requiring a sidewalk at every single corner of the city, you know, it's a benefit to taxpayers. But
Well, maybe a solution is sidewalk just on one side. Every time I go out with my car, I go over on 10th Street and I go on 12th Street. Sidewalk is only on one side of the street. And I've seen 2 people walking on 10th and 12th. I seen a woman walking on 10th Street, walking north, and I seen a man on 12th Street walking south. Of all the times that I've been up there, 2 people. On the sidewalk down along 2nd Street, along the river, I've seen 6 people walking there. And I go out with my car just about every day. And it's just a little jaunt up there just to check and see what the usage is. And there may be areas like your area that there are a lot of people that walk on the sidewalk. But I think there's areas of the city where there's not going to be a lot of usage. Now, in my particular area, I've lived in my house for 58 years. There's not going to be any development to the west to speak of. I can count on one hand how many homes have been built there in the last 58 years. The reason, because you got high rock formations, you got high groundwater, and you got clay. So there's no development. In fact, you got a lot of woodlands over there. So there isn't gonna be a lot of people walking there because there's not gonna be any development.
Well, and I agree that what you initially said, Mr. Brzezinski, that we're not going to be able to figure this out tonight, but what we'll do is we'll keep it on the agenda. Mr., did you have your hand?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. I was
No,
gonna say
that's
you
all, I'm
were
gonna let you finish. Yeah, I know. No, I didn't.
Get you going.
No, that, over the years, I've been a proponent of sidewalks. Years ago, one of or what came up all the time was people didn't want to pay for it, so it was tried to get even 50/50 or city pay and that, but then you'd hear the thing, well, I paid for my sidewalk 45 years ago, I ain't gonna pay for somebody else to have a sidewalk. I've lived through the thing where it's been put in on, well, put it on this side, but don't put it on my side. I'll walk on the other side of the street. That's fine with me, but that guy's gonna shovel it, I ain't shoveling mine. I've listened to all the excuses for 30 years sitting down here at this table. So if you want to hear about the sidewalks, I can tell you. I've argued off and on at times that the city should pay more for the sidewalks to make it more palatable to put in. That should become part of the budget process. We do have that, I don't think our ordinance cover actually where I would like to see sidewalks, because I think they should be in more places than what there are, more places than what the ordinance say that they should even be put in. To get people off the street to walk is what I think we should do. The streets aren't put in for people to walk on. That's why we are creating biking, walking trails and whatever. Also, so people will walk more exercise than that. In the case of the Chestnut Street, Chase Street, we're just in 17th, butts right up to Mead Field and Mead School area. You know, there may not be, as some would look at now, as maybe that there aren't a lot of kids right now, but there have been in the past. So that doesn't mean that, as was mentioned earlier, that 20 years from now or whatever, there will be a boatload of kids walking back and forth to that school. So there are places, I think, obviously, that I think as we either, if streets are redone and they have sidewalks, that the sidewalks should be put back in. If there weren't sidewalks there, but the need is there for it, we went through this on Washington Street, which then fell in under the Safe Routes to School program, I think was the name of it a few years back. People didn't want it. Now you can walk, you can drive up and down the street, you can sit on the corner. You may not see a lot of people at one time, but there are people that are biking and walking on that street, on the sidewalks, and they're on both sides. I'm a proponent of that if you're going to do it, that it is on both sides. It becomes more palatable to do. If people don't want it, then you, as I said earlier, you fall into, not on my side, but go ahead, put it over there if you want to. They got to take care of it, you know. And that may work, But also, you still get the debate, the argument of, and it's better than not having any at all, but you have the debate of which side to put it on. You know, my side, on my block, somebody may want it on their side. Put it in my front yard. It serves as a break too for kids. So, you know, not to learn to bike on or whatever it is to walk for people to walk on, but it's also a break from kids and whatever running out into the traffic. And that's where it also, depending what kind of, what type of street you're on, maybe on a very quiet street. There's hardly any traffic, but it is a break. It serves almost like a fence at times in some places. So that, sidewalks, I think, add to the neighborhoods. They add to safety. It's just, it's the biggest argument that, other than people may not want it at all, but an argument over all the years has been, who's going to pay for it? I don't want to pay for it. And that's why, to look at how it's funded or whatever, I'm open to whatever suggestions would be, because that may make it more palatable to install sidewalks. It may not be too, but that may, because it is a big bill. You can't, so it's just.
Well, I know years ago, and Tom probably remembers this too, we did install sidewalk, but we concentrated it around the schools to get sidewalk for the kids walking to schools. And times change, conditions change, and I think if you have a plan, you have to review it every so often to make sure it's current, that it serves the purpose, that people accept it. And in some areas, sidewalk might be great. It would have been great in our area 35 years ago. It's not great today.
So with that, it sounds like we've got a dichotomy of opinions here, mine not included. It isn't too much of a issue with myself one way or the other, but what I'll do is we'll keep it on the referral list here for that particular issue of reviewing the sidewalks. I'll take a look at what the ordinance is for sidewalks. We'll have that available for us next time, and then we can further talk about sidewalks. But with that being said, we'll go to item number 8, review and consider change order request to install pour-in-place fall protection for swing set area at the aquatic park and playground.
Are we still gonna install sidewalk yet this year?
Well, we can look at item number 9. Okay. So I think we can do that at item number 9.
Okay, we're on number 8 now.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I don't want to do all the talking. I talked to Joe about this, and the area to be covered is 70 square feet, or square yards, for $16,000. That comes to $231 per square yard. It's pretty expensive. Do we have any of this material installed in any of our playgrounds in the city at this point?
We currently do not, no.
Okay. I guess I seen the picture of it in your office, and I have some questions. Will it mat with a lot of traffic on it? The top surface doesn't look entirely smooth. If a child falls on it, will it get scraped or cut or bruised? I think at this time of the year, if we move forward, we're making a mistake, because it's too late in the year. We've got time next spring to pass it and put it in. I do think it's expensive, and I'd like to see just a core of it to see what it looks like, and if we can determine, if it's going to be something that's going to have a long life, or if it's going to be short-lived, if it's going to provide a safety factor for the kids. And then do we have unlimited funds for the aquatic center? Or do we have to watch our pennies?
I don't know what the figure is, but to answer that quick question, we still are short financially for the overall project. So the shortfall is, and I don't want to quote a figure because I don't know it and I'm not going to speak out of turn, but we have not satisfied the overall complete out-the-door cost of financing that project.
Doesn't Grove School have rubber? Is this a different thing, or is it potentially, because I think that rubberized Delbert Grove School, the altogether playground is very nice. That's a very nice safety feature.
Yeah, so this material is the standard for new playground installations. It provides the fall protection that's required by law. Its longevity is good. Usually you're looking at 15 to 20 years of lifespan before you need to do some maintenance on it. It's a two-part process. The foundation is your subgrade. There's generally, I think on this project, there's 8 inches of aggregate that goes down so that it's a well-supported surface for the material. It's applied in 2 phases. The first part is, it's a spray-on type application. It's called pour in place, but it's sprayed. It's rubber shards, basically, real fine. And that first protective layer is based on the height of the equipment that you're trying to protect the kids from. Once that's installed, then the finish layer, the surface layer, seals it. To answer your question, Bud, is the surface is it is not smooth like like wood or concrete. It has a texture to it, but the texture is a soft texture. It's kind of a rubberized texture. So it's not slippery, but at the same time, if you're running and you fall down on it, it absorbs the impact, but it's not abrasive. So it is the standard for playground installations. I will say that most of the site already has this material in the contract. What this location is it was an error, we'll say. During the design process, and Tom probably remembers this, initially we talked about this playground is broken into 2 areas, and it's separated by what kind of looks like a river. It's kind of a Wisconsin Rapids theme. And on one half of the playground was the plan to install this pretty grand playground equipment, and if you drive by the site you can see it. It's pretty impressive. The other side, we discussed waiting and sometime in the future having a donor donate something and we do an improvement. Prior to the project being let, the decision was made we should at least put a swing set or something in there. It shouldn't just be an open area. Maintaining just a sandbox doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so the decision was made to put a swing set there. The problem is when the project was let, that area wasn't revised to have the same pour-in-place surface as the rest of the playground, and it should have. And so the issue is that we've got the swing set. That area isn't going to be the best used area. We could pull the foundation out for the swing set and just plant it in grass or do something like that if we wanted to. But the swing set really was part of the project, and it does cap off the playground area. The playground area has some traditional features. And it's got some modern features to it. The swing set's kind of a traditional feature, and I think a lot of people still like to swing on a playground. And we do need to have, if we're going to have that swing set, we do need to have adequate fall protection in place. This is the going rate for this material. It is very expensive, no doubt about it. The alternative is kind of a bark type material, and that there's a lot of maintenance to maintain that thickness and keep that material in place. So if it were a material that wasn't going to be on the project, I wouldn't necessarily be quite as supportive. But given that the majority of that playground is already going to be utilizing those materials, I think it would be in the city's best interest to make it consistent. It is low maintenance, and that is something that I think is a factor. You pay a little bit now for it, but for our staff to maintain the site, it is not something that they're going to have to regularly be going in and spraying for ground bees and putting in new bark or making annual maintenance adjustments to make it work. So I have talked about, and Bud and I talked about it briefly, about the timing on it. With a change order like this, we would like to get a decision made one way or the other promptly so that the contractor can plan. That said, I do have some concerns with how this material is placed. I learned about this fairly recently. The fact that we've got the playground set complete, I think it would have been better if the foundation was put in, then this material placed, and then it built, just for uniform compaction underneath the playground area. My concern right now with doing everything is that there may be some settlement over the winter. And so the recommendation, I ran it past our consulting engineer, and their recommendation is similar to what they would recommend for an asphalt surface, for a new project, is go ahead and put that first course down. They're confident that the contractor has it compacted well. The contractor can protect it over the winter, and then put the final surface on in the spring. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made to make sure the final surface does self-level, so that if there are any areas where there's some minor settlement, that can be corrected in the top coat, similar to what you might do with the asphalt surface by putting binder down, waiting a few weeks or a month or two, and then putting the final surface. I do think there's merit in delaying the final surface, and the contractor is willing to do that. So.
Well, I guess as far as I'm concerned on it, I'm not too worried about the material per se underneath, but it's just the actual doing the project. I mean, we're way short of funds for this, and if it was a case where we were flush with money and donations were coming in and we had to donate a donor specifically for this, I'd say more than anything, absolutely, let's do it, but we don't. We've got to, in my opinion, especially coming into budget season, we've got to conserve our funds. We had a catastrophic storm event, and that's going to cost us, depending upon how much FEMA aid or anything else that we get, if we get any. And we can't afford it right now, so I'm going to vote no on this particular project.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If the decision is not to do this, then we would pull the swing set out? Is that?
Is it in?
It's in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the swing set and playground equipment was approved as part of the project. But what was missed was that this wasn't a pour in place. It was missed on the plans as a pour in place activity area.
We could put down bark. We can take some of that the bark that we chewed up from all the trees that came down in the storm.
Well, there's been plenty of that. Where would we, well, I guess, there's other monies we gotta come up with somehow for the aquatic center. I just think that that it's there, that it's, to do this, I guess I'd rather do it as the change order request is for. To me, I guess that'd be the right way to do it, and somehow we're gonna have, I guess, I'm moving, I guess, to do that, move to, that we proceed with the change order request.
Motion on the floor, do we have a second? I'll ask you again, motion on the floor, do we have a second?
And just so the committee understands, the committee is the final authority on change orders, so.
With the motion on the floor, is there a second? With not hearing any.
Let me ask this. We got a motion on the floor, but can we hold this over until spring or not?
If the motion fails, then another motion could be made on this particular item. Yeah.
Second.
If this delays until spring, it won't be at this price because the contractor would mobilize and come in and do that first surface. They're gonna do that on the rest of it anyway, right? Because that's part of the project. This is just for this area around the swing set.
Are they
So-
gonna do that yet this fall?
They're going to do the first part of the surface, that black layer that you saw.
Yeah,
Then in the spring, they'll do the finish layer.
okay, but they're
So
gonna
it's
do that black layer.
They're gonna do the black layer this
yet
fall.
Fall.
Right. So if we hold off on any decision, the cost will be different. I'm certain of it. Because that company will have to mobilize back in to do that initial layer on part or not. The finish will be the same.
I thought you said that you were recommending to have two different lifts anyway,
Correct.
so there'd be remobilization.
Not for that first material is a different material
But that's gonna get put in anyway, right?
this fall.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's gonna be mobilization charges regardless.
Well, there's already in the contract, that first 2/3 of the playground area is planned to be, that surface is planned to be put down this fall anyway. And I've asked them to hold, they were gonna do all of it. I've asked them to hold off on the surface until spring. They did agree to do that. The concern I have is that if the decision itself is held out until spring, that we don't make any decision now, that these prices won't be valid.
Is this the second change order on the entire project?
Yes. The first change order was for $3,700, and that was to upsize an electrical conductor. The design engineer had a conductor size designed. The state building inspector kind of questioned it. At the end of the day, the discussion was, it was $3,700 to upsize the conductor, and they felt that it would be a safer electrical system if that conductor were upsized. So yeah, that one was for $3,766. This proposed one is for $16,110.23.
Going back to the increased charges, I don't understand, because if the first layer is only gonna go down anyway in the fall, and the next layer would go down in the spring anyway, where's the increase of?
They need to put the first layer down in the new part in the spring if there's a delay in this decision. For moving the project forward, it would be best to know, are we not gonna do a pour and place surface? Are we gonna put, for the swing set area, you gonna go with a bark or something different versus the pour and play for that area or not, so that the contractor can plan and do their work accordingly.
But again, that's where I don't understand, it's not jiving, because if they're gonna come back, they're gonna have to have mobilization fees when they come back in the spring regardless. So if it's done in the spring completely, or if the contractor comes back in the spring, there's gonna be mobilization charges with that.
So it's a two-part process, right? The first part, if they do in the fall, they'll do the black thick part first. In the spring, if they don't do this, if there's no decision made until spring, then when they come in, they have to do the black part on the swing set area and do the surface. It's not just one application, it's a two-part process. You're paving a cushion layer and you're paving a surface layer. They're gonna come in the fall to pave the cushion layer
In another part of the project.
and another part of the project.
So then what you're saying is, if it's pushed off till spring, that part that's already done is gonna have to be done over here.
Right.
But if it's a case where we're concerned about like compression and compaction, why would we do the second layer on the other side of the park? I would say that we should do both the top layers in the spring if we were to do that, because if there's concern about compression and compaction of the soil in one area, the Whitterfield area, the ground is very similar.
And that's what the plan is. That if this is approved, they would do that first layer this fall. And their plan was to do it all this fall. They agreed to hold off on that
Right.
surface till spring. Then in the spring, they do the top surface.
Why would it be more expensive if it was done in the, mobilization is gonna be, if I was a contractor, I mean, I would still charge, if I had to come back in the spring, it'd be the same exact that.
Except you're coming back to do a surface layer separately than the top layer. It doesn't go on at the same time, right? So you'd have to come in, do the surface layer, and then come back and do the top layer.
Correct,
Twice in the spring.
correct.
Versus coming here once to do, they're gonna do some surface layer this fall. If they don't do all the surface layer this fall, they have to come back to do a surface layer in the spring. So that's one additional mold. Then they do the top layer after that bottom layer is set.
So we're incurring already more costs right now because we're having them come back.
They've agreed to do the surface in the spring. They've agreed to do that at no extra charge. They don't have to, because that's not in the contract. That's just a request that I made. Is it would, I'm concerned. I want to make sure that there's no.
I don't get it.
Shane said he can come up with the money.
I'm gonna borrow it from you, bud. But Mike,
Go ahead, Mr. Blake.
so is there, in this playground area, there's none of the surface gonna be, currently is in there, or is part of it is?
None of it is,
Okay.
and it is being scheduled to be put in.
Yeah.
I mean, the contractor's scheduling that work right now. They're scheduling with that contractor. So this is the playground area that's built. This is kind of that river area, and this has that material also. It's just a different color. And this is the swing set area, right here.
So does this area already, is this area got it?
It will. It does not now.
So this is the only area that, for me, it just doesn't make sense why we don't do it.
If we're gonna do it now.
I guess I have no vote in it because the decision's made by the committee, but obviously it's safety for children here. That whole area is all rubberized under the play equipment that's there, except for over here where the swing sets are. It doesn't make sense for, I can't comprehend, I'm not a fan of spending any more money on this place either, but I think we're talking about safety of kids on a swing set. We all survive driving in a swing set, but things have changed.
True, but I think that there was the essence of that this isn't the only fall protection mechanism. There are other mechanisms being, like chipped wood or whatever you want to call that, or there's foam and different things. So this is something, it's more aesthetically pleasing than most things. And it is
Consistent.
more maintenance and more maintenance free, I should say. But I'm tired of having oversights. I'm tired of trying to find money that doesn't exist, especially when we're budgeted to the extremes. And I agree that there's an element to safety, but then let's just remove the swing set and put it in storage until we get a donor. I mean, it said it was assumed that a donor would come forward, and we needed a
No,
lot
that
of
was
donors so
before
far.
the project was let. When the decision was made to do the playground, this is the playground that was approved. This is the playground that the council approved. And it included the swing set, right? The oversight was that the plan didn't change for that particular area for the surface. So there's boulders that won't be installed. There's, just the sand surface and boulders. It was kind of a landscaped area. So when the project was let, it was let with the swing set installed, and the swing set's installed. So we'd have to remove it. We'd throw away the money for the footings for the swing set. If we were going to store it somewhere, we'd have to figure out where we're going to store it, how long you want to store it, where
I
you
don't know
want to
why
put
we
it.
would have to destroy the footings. The footings can stay in the ground where they were, or where they are. We can put a shrub or other shrubs around it so that people don't stub their foot on the anchor bolts sticking out, or we could even put signs or lights with it, as far as I'm concerned. The only thing that we would have to do is remove the physical swing set itself, dismantle it, and as far as I'm concerned, I would even do that on the weekend to volunteer to the great city of Wisconsin Rapids to make sure that there is no further cost on this. But I'm absolutely opposed to spending another $16,110.23 on this. This is ridiculous.
They won't give us rebate for not having to put those stones or those boulders?
That's included in there, yes.
Oh.
The reduction in cost is $3,780 for not installing
The boulders.
the boulders, right? So the pour in place surface is $17,903. And then when you have the reduction in cost, the ultimate result is $16,110.23.
Yes, sir.
I do agree with you, though, that, if we're not going to do the surface, we're going to put wood chips in there, and they're just going to get spread out all over the park. We might as well pull the swing set and landscape it then, because I think the park is not a very good alternative. And so if the committee is not interested in doing the surface, then I say just pull it out and be done with it, because I think the park is going to be a mess. All over that otherized rubberized surface, that park's going to be spread across that. And it's just they're going to be out there blowing it all out. So yeah, if we're not going to do the rubberized surface, I'd pull the swing set and get rid of it.
Yeah,
Just
put it
because the
sand,
park is going to be a
whatever.
mess.
We have.
Mhm.
Well, there is a motion, not a second, so I guess.
I'll give a moment to Bud. Bud, what are you looking for? Are you looking for, because there is a motion on the floor, and I'll give you a moment if you're looking for something, but otherwise, I'll call the last time if there's a second on this particular motion. And the motion is.
If you have it. Maybe it is.
Your motion was to install, right?
Install. At the 16,110.
Here it says boulders would be a deduct for $780.
The total deduct is $3,780, on the same page you were just on, but. There's a $3,000 deduct for removing the play sand,
Yeah.
and a $780 deduct for removing the 12 boulders, so it's,
Then they added another $1,790 for management fee.
yep.
You can't win for. The finance committee is gonna have to bond for the shortfall on that aquatic center.
The council is gonna have to bond for whatever is unable to be fundraised, whatever that balance is.
Is there
Ideally,
amounts
it'd be
that are
zero.
ready now that you have to bond for?
No, it's a kind of an unknown, correct me if I'm wrong, it's unknown until we get to that point. In case if some donors do step up, it would reduce that amount to be bonded. Correct.
Well, the bond amount is going to be ultimately the last change order or the last draw that the contractor, general contractor will have. So they're going to ask for money. And we're going to have to, at that time or prior to that time, find out what we need as a shortfall.
Yeah.
And again, I have no interest in making a guess. I'm not going to guess on what our shortfall was. But 3, 4, 5 months ago, the last official word that we got from the mayor in terms of a public meeting was somewhere around $3 million shortfall.
How much?
3 with what?
A lot of
6
zeros.
zeros after it.
$3 million.
And it might have changed. It might have changed, but it has not significantly changed as far as I know. Otherwise, we would have probably got that report that there was a major bond donor that came in. So we're sitting $3 million that we got a bond for when general contractor sends us our bill. So it's a lot of roads that we could be replacing.
Ready tomorrow. I'm sure this is not the last change order either.
No, unexpected things happen.
Huh?
You've been around, unexpected things happen.
Yeah.
You know, this is this project is a you know,
Big
tremendous project, and will be a tremendous asset for the city, and there's a lot of costs involved, and, you know, you guys are responsible for trying to make a tough decision, so. But I do think it would be a little odd if we were to leave the swing set and have bark there and a pour in place for the rest of it. I mean, it wouldn't be, the continuity, I think at the end of the day, you look at it and scratch your head and wonder if it was the right decision or not.
Is there any place else in this project that we could save additional funds? Is there anything that you know of that we're not gonna have to do?
Not at this time. Not at this time. You know, we're, like the parking lots, for example, are sized at a minimum size. You know, if we were to get rid of some parking or something like that, but we've got everything pretty well cut down to minimum. We're still like for parking, for example, we're still depending on Chestnut parking. We're still dependent on being able to utilize the school's parking lot off of Apple there.
It's gonna be one crowded place. 36 days out of the year when, if the pool's open and the Raptors are playing, that's gonna be one crowded, jam-packed area, and a lot of bucks are gonna change hands. Hopefully a lot comes the city's ways.
Well, if,
I mean, there's gonna be thousands and thousands of people on certain days, not just at the aquatic center, but with that added to the ballpark.
I agree with that. With that said, in time of essence, I'll call one more time. If there's a second to the motion, there's a motion on the floor to approve the change order and proceed with providing pour in place fall protection mechanism. Is there a second to the motion? Last call. With not hearing any.
If I second that, we're gonna have to watch that project awful damn close and not come in with any other change orders or cut every place that we can cut 10 cents. It's a big project, and I think we should be able to save a little bit here or there. I'll second it with reservations.
There is a motion on the floor, a second by Mr. Virginski to approve change order request to install pour in place fall protection for swing set area at the aquatic park and playground. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against, nay. Motion carries 2-1 with Kubitschek in the opposition or negative. With that being said, we'll go to item number 9, review and consider the sidewalk improvements for the Chase Street project. And that was one item that you brought.
Yeah. I got signatures from people along Chase Street on the sidewalk. They're definitely against sidewalk. In fact, they're really up in arms. They don't want any sidewalk. They would rather, I got a few more signatures besides that. The only ones that I couldn't get are the ones that are renters. And there was one that was up in Door County I couldn't get. For the reasons that I said before, they're against 100% assessment on the sidewalk. They don't think it'll benefit. They want to increase their value of their property. And the 4 blocks on that street is made up of probably 75 to 80% elderly people. In my block, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 retired families, one on Social Security disability, one on a Part 135 house, just in my block. So I would like to see, like I said before, this committee or someone in the city come up with a sidewalk plan, not to put any more sidewalk in anymore this year because it's getting late in the year anyway, and they're not going to finish the project. Try to compromise, I guess, with the property owners, but the way it is right now, they're definitely against it.
JC?
No, I'm just thinking, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think if we looked at any project that the city has done probably in the last 50 years, I can't imagine that the residents along the project were supportive of the sidewalk. We had last year on High Street, people were upset about the sidewalk, and the year before. It's, the challenge with this project is and I suppose you could change course, but it's consistent with the city's ordinance. You know, the classification of the roadway is such that this project warrants sidewalk. I do think that if there was an effort to not install it, I think we'd hear from the schools. You know, and this is a challenging situation. I mean, I would be all for not having assessments. The residents don't like it. It's an administrative hassle for the city to deal with it. I don't know where the funding would come from to do the projects. But if you look back at, like, for example, the 10th and 12th Street sidewalk projects that were recently done, you know, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back on those projects. We had a couple residents come in over the last several years requesting those as projects. And a number of us, myself included, during the winter months saw elderly people running their electric scooters down the middle of the street because that's the high point and that's where there wasn't snow. They're running right down the middle of the street on, you know, on non-residential streets. They're a busier street. You know, the decisions on sidewalks are tough, and I don't care where you go, there's strong debate whenever they're talked about.
Well, when you got 4 blocks like that, and you got residents on both sides of the street, and the majority of them are senior citizens, they're retired, and they get a letter from the city saying that their special assessment is going to be from anywhere from $7,000 to over $14,000 on a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting a burden on those people, a real burden. The lady on the corner trying to buy that house and working, she said she wanted to retire. She can't retire, not with a bill like that coming up.
Sure.
And in my particular case, it'll take every penny of my Social Security check for 8.5 months just to pay for that project. And years ago, the city used to pay more towards the street surfacing. We're not complaining about that because the street is bad, it's old. It was put in 59 or 60. So it serves its useful purpose. So the street, they're not complaining about. They're complaining about the curb and gutter that's ripped out. Just a minute. Take a look at those pictures. Those are pictures of curb and gutter on that street. If you go over on 2nd Street on the east side of the river where there's been sidewalk put all the way along the river, that sidewalk is new, but the curb and gutter is a lot worse than any curb and gutter on Chase Street. And if the city doesn't have to replace their curb and gutter, why do we have to replace it and pay 66% of the cost? There's 14 places, and I could have marked them. I checked them a number of times. On 2nd Street, where the curb and gutter is settled, where there's water standing, or where the curb is broken out, or where it's actually settled, but it's settled to the point where it's settled so much the water runs by it, it runs out in the street.
Sir.
So, but those 4 blocks areas, probably years ago, they all had children, correct? Years ago, all those people in all that area around your house, they all had kids back in the day, and they probably all used the sidewalk. When your kids were growing up, they probably all.
Years ago, those
Yeah.
kids used to stand on the corner and wait for the bus.
Oh.
You know, they'd walk a half a block or a block, and then they'd stand on the corner and wait for the bus.
But they probably rode their bikes up and down the sidewalks and things like that, I would think.
No, we didn't see very many bikes. We seen kids walking. But now, there's no kids. The kids are all grown up and they're gone.
So I guess my thought is, what happens when you guys, all the people in that neighborhood have moved on, and new families move in with little kids? You know, they're probably going to want to use those sidewalks too, down the road. Because like I said, where I live, I cannot believe they didn't have sidewalks through there. They stop part way. And the airport doesn't have any sidewalks as a main road. And you would think, I just can't comprehend why we don't have sidewalks, or at least it wasn't finished back, what that reason was. And yeah, so I guess I'm just trying to think of the families that are gonna follow you guys, the young families that will eventually repopulate that neighborhood, probably gonna want sidewalks with kids.
I think where you've got an area where it's just being developed, new homes, people moving into the area, small kids, if they request sidewalk, I'd say put it in for them. But in the area where you've got senior citizens and they've been living there all these years, their kids are growing up and gone, and nobody uses the sidewalk. Once in a while, a person will walk by my place with a dog. Why put that burden on those people?
And I think one thing, just for clarification, Bud mentioned two different things, one being the sidewalk and one being the curb and gutter, and I believe that's what we're looking at in the picture, is that
Yeah, curb and gutter.
the quality of the curb and gutter.
But that's in the overall cost, assessment cost, $7,000 to $14,000.
And I do agree with you, there's parts of town with a lot worse curb and gutter.
You go down the traffic islands and look at the weeds growing up around the traffic islands in the city. There's weeds growing up between some of that curb and gutter, but the people, they haven't sprayed it now because it's all gonna be torn out.
Yes?
So one of the challenges in determining how to do these projects as it relates to the curb and gutter is the expected pavement life. You know, what we've seen, and you've seen, I'm sure, in your career here, is that there's a lot of places where we're getting 40, 50, 60 years out of our pavements because we maintain them. If we put in a new road there and don't replace the curb's not going to last another 50 years. So you know, you're dealing with a situation where when you're improving and replacing the sewers, a lot of times you can't excavate those if the curb stays in place. Or if you were to be able to and replace the road, 15 years you're going to cut the road up because you've got curb repairs that you have to make.
That sewer along the river has gotta be 100 years old, and still serviceable.
Well, and it's just about done. We're having trouble with it.
And the sewer there on Chase Street is probably 50 years old.
I think it's older than that.
On 8th Street?
Chase.
Oh, Chase. Yeah, it's over 50.
Yeah, I don't know on 8th Street how,
No,
probably isn't that old. But along the river, it's gotta be 100 years old.
oh yeah,
I recall it had some deep, quite a few
There's some
defects.
problems.
Yeah.
it's 100 and better if nothing was done in between. Been there so long.
Well, I just think that it's a poor situation when you put that much of a burden on retired people in the city. They don't want it, they don't need it, and yet they gotta pay for it.
Up to 14 grand, that's what
Huh?
up to $14,000, that's what the letter said.
Over 14,000, yeah.
Question?
That's everything.
Curb and gutter
That's everything.
and sidewalk.
Yeah, the paving,
Not
the
just the
paving
sidewalk,
they're not
not just the
complaining about,
sidewalk,
though, they pay for paving.
Yeah, the approach on the driveway.
Yeah.
Mr. Blazer?
I was just gonna ask, what's their percentage pay? So the city pays what and the homeowner pays what on the percentage of the cost?
For curb and gutter?
Is
For
it-
all the items?
Are they, I guess what I'm trying to get, are they different? So do you pay more on sidewalk versus street surfacing versus curb and gutter, or,
Yeah.
oh, it's not like,
Yeah, it's all spelled out in the ordinance.
oh, okay. I didn't know if it was like one set percentage.
And so,
We don't have a sidewalk inspector.
We do.
We do, full-time.
Well, they do a lot besides inspect the sidewalk, but it's part of the engineering department staff.
Well, it used to be that we had a sidewalk inspector, and they said they got one now. But he would go around the city and check for sidewalk that's bad. And in that particular case, the property owner had to pay for the replacement. But when they had a project such as this, he would mark the curb, what was settled, broke, not serviceable. And the property owner paid for the replacement. The curb that was good and serviceable wasn't removed. But to remove everything, even if it's serviceable and in good shape, when the property owner paid for it one time, I don't think they should have to pay for it the second time.
And there's one of the elements too with older concrete, how they used more percentage of Portland cement in the concrete. Now there's a lot more fly ash. And there's debates in terms of, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to debate the merits of it, but it seems like concrete poured nowadays is different than it was poured 60, 70, 80 years ago. And obviously there's a lot more cure time for a concrete that's been around for 80 years, but sometimes when we're dismantling and tearing down buildings, taking out that old concrete is challenging, whereas the new stuff doesn't hold up like it used to, so then that would have merit for keeping certain.
And the sidewalk or the curb is gonna be scraped, there's no doubt about it, because the first couple snowfalls, when the truck goes by with the wing down or the grader goes by, they're gonna push the snow out to the curb and it's gonna scrape the curb.
But a lot of even if we could keep the curb, every water service is gonna remove a piece or two
Yeah.
in every sanitary service. And in most cases, on this project, so much of the trench, you could not excavate the trench without losing the curb.
Well, that's another thing. They haven't found a lead lead water service yet on that project. They did the other day when I was down there. I don't know why they're replacing all the water services and all the cast iron sanitary service.
The PVC's got a 100-year lifespan. That cast iron doesn't last forever.
Years ago, they had Orangeburg and, Chestnut Street's got Orangeburg on it, 14th Street had it. There's a lot of streets off of Chestnut Street that's got Orangeburg because that was put in during the war. With cast iron, I haven't heard any cast iron leaks feeling. Well, I'd just like to see the sidewalk project held up until spring, until we got a chance to look at the ordinance. I'll make a motion to that effect.
So the motion will be creating a moratorium on existing sidewalk or existing and future sidewalk
Until this committee has a chance to review the ordinance.
until further action is taken. So a moratorium on sidewalks moving.
They have to put the curb and gutter in because they want to pave the street, so that you can't do anything about that.
In the approaches, the driveway approaches,
Yeah.
but a moratorium on sidewalks.
All sidewalks, or just this project, or
On both sides,
just this project, or sidewalks on all the projects within the city?
I think the whole city. All except where they were damaged by the storm. Those have to be taken care of yet this fall. You got a lot of sidewalk in the city that has to be replaced that was damaged by trees.
Yeah, we have a different contract, it's a different contract altogether.
Yeah, right, yeah, could be
So a moratorium on
new sidewalk extensions.
new sidewalk construction and extension. I'll second it, just for discussion's sake. All right, Mr. Blazer.
So if that happens and the street gets done, everything gets done, and they have to come back in the spring to do sidewalks,
Yeah,
won't
they
that
gotta come
cost,
back to complete the project.
won't that cost dramatically increase to the homeowners potentially, because you have to now come back and do it, or? That's my only concern, is I just don't hate to see the homeowners have to even get a bigger bill because now they're coming back to redo things they could have done in the fall.
Well, we let our concrete contract every spring.
Oh.
I guess, I don't know off
You
the
can
top of
include
my
that,
head.
okay. I just didn't want to see them get charged even more, because that's obviously the concern is the cost and, but yeah, so if it's a
It's just-
separate.
Well, it depends
Yeah,
on what
that's
the
good.
bids come out in the spring. I mean,
Yeah.
if we conclude the contract this year and we let it in the spring and it costs more next year, and the decision is to do it, it could cost more.
Right.
I
just
don't
wanna-
think,
yeah.
so what we don't charge the property owners for is the city goes in and does the restoration work. The challenge we have is that we try to schedule our projects with storm damage. There's a block of chase that we're gonna have to do in the spring. We're not comfortable opening it up. It'd be real tight if we could actually get it paved or not, and we don't wanna leave a section unpaved. So, we've got projects slated for 2020 to fill the calendar. We already have some run over from 2019, but the other extra work that we would have is the restoration. That if we hold off, we'll have additional restoration work in the spring too. So it'll affect what we can get done next year.
But as I just want to make sure we can protect the cost on the homeowners, being that that's the concern. But yeah, if it's included with the other already in the spring, potentially, okay. That's just my concern.
Yeah, I mean, the concrete could cost more if
Right.
if we end the contract with our contractor this fall and say, yep, we're done, and then we let it next year, we're at the mercy of whatever the contract prices come in at.
And then Chase is going to have partial sidewalks and then no sidewalks, correct? Okay.
Well, Tom, what were you looking at on sidewalk? City picking up a portion of the cost? Is that what you were thinking about?
Well, I think at some point in time, but that's been discussed over several different times, maybe in different ways, and maybe we just haven't come up on the right way with it.
Or even look at the percentages.
I just, yeah,
Can you remember?
see, we're, some of it's kind of like, it's like the ball game. The guy's sliding in the home plate and the catcher's blocking the plate, and does he get his hand between the catcher's legs there to touch the plate to be safe or not? We're kind of at the end of the ball game. This debate, I think, has gone on, and the decision was made to go ahead and do this, to do the project as such. Obviously, things can be changed, but
Can you remember, didn't the city pick up a portion of it many years ago?
I don't remember off the top of my head that we did installations like this. I just,
I would speculate once upon a time that it was picked up. A lot of times assessments started to happen because property taxes are evil. And local governments were looking for a way to take projects that affect certain people and get that off the tax roll. So, again, I'm speculating, but the various places that I've worked over the years, once upon a time, there weren't assessments. And then it was kind of the necessity over budgets and trying to keep the tax rate the same as what a comparable municipality is, because the comparable municipalities charging assessments, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak.
You know, and that makes sense. I mean, that probably could have been the
Well,
case too, but
assessment used
it's
to
all,
be
you know, I would totally support that somehow that the city, but it's how we come up with money then to do this, you know, tax money from residents to pay for this. The bottom line still is, I think, it's, is there still the objection, at least in certain places, is there still that objection to having a sidewalk at all? You know, if the ordinance is that sidewalks are going to be in this place, you're still, I think there's still that, going to be that objection
That obligation.
that I don't want it.
Right.
Why me? Why in front of my house? That, it's still, you know, subsidized by the city, I think, would help to some extent, but definitely if it is put in, it would absorb the cost to the property owner, per se. But, you know, it's just, it's, I think not to forget the ordinance part of why we look at having sidewalks, at least in certain areas, and even where you mentioned airport, and streets like that, how sidewalks were never put in. I mean, it's amazing.
The rates used to be established right after the first year before the bids even came in. Remember, the council used to set the cost for permanent surfacing on the street, overlay, curb and gutter, and sidewalk, before the bids for the concrete ever came in.
And now it's done based on actual costs.
Yeah.
You know, how it's paid for, I guess, is one thing. I would still be in favor that the sidewalk is put in this location. If it's to be looked at, of how it would be financed and others in the future is one thing, but, you know, our ordinance and that it calls for it to be installed, is that, you know, to wait till spring, I don't know that resolves that issue, that part of it. You know, I think the sidewalk should go in either way, either by what the assessments are now, or if the way assessments are done is changed. I still think that this sidewalk project should be installed with this project.
Can I read the motion back to make sure that I've got it correct?
The motion on the floor will be to execute a moratorium on new sidewalk extensions, not repairs to existing sidewalks, until further notice.
Okay.
It's just the only item that I'd mention on is the contractor's currently scheduled to start flat work the week of the 14th of this month, so 2 weeks from now, which if they come in on Monday, it'll actually be for council, you know, we're
And we have struggled to get the contractor to come to town. So if we tell him to go away,
Is the same contractor that's doing the curb and gutter doing the sidewalk?
yeah,
He can do the curb and gutter then.
he'll be doing that starting tomorrow. Thursday.
But he's scheduled to start the sidewalk on 14th, you say?
On the 14th, yeah,
14th, yeah.
that week. He'll be in all that week doing sidewalk and driveways. I mean, subject to weather
So-
and those
right,
things, but
subject to
at this
weather.
point, that's the
The council meeting's not till the next night on the 15th for one thing, but it's also to tell them not to do it. If that's the,
Just so you're aware, that's all.
So we've got a motion on the floor, a second, I made the second on that. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion of creating a sidewalk moratorium for new sidewalk extension excluding sidewalk replacement and repair, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
nay.
Ayes have it 2-0 with Mr. Rayoma voting in the negative. With that said, we,
Isn't the Chase sidewalk a replacement though? Because it's not brand new. It's replacing existing.
do you guys got sidewalk there?
Huh?
Do you have sidewalk there?
Well, some of us do, but they haven't tore any out that I know of.
So yeah, the
They're not
sidewalk
gonna
going in is
carry
being
any more.
replaced.
Not on our street.
Don't Chase have sidewalk?
So that would be.
Well, I drove by and I didn't get out and walk along there, I should have today. I drove on 17th, I went down 21st, actually 20th, and
It's just where the storm tore up sidewalk, they can
I was
replace
wondering
that.
myself, I'm glad you brought it up, because I forgot sitting here tonight.
Yeah, because this isn't new, it's replacement. Replaces.
New sidewalk has to be made.
Did you have sidewalk, bud?
I got some in front of my house, but not up the whole,
It's
I
disjuncted
got
along
80
Chase
some
Street.
feet.
Is it?
Hmm? What's that, Joe?
It's disjuncted along Chase
Yeah,
Street.
okay.
It's in some areas and not
That's what I
others.
was, when I was on 20th, that's what I was wondering from that end, and then when I stopped saying the 17th, I couldn't tell for sure looking the other way. But
Yeah.
on 20th, it looked like it was,
So some is new and some is being replaced.
yeah.
So then how does that affect motion that we had?
They can't put in the new stuff, but you can replace the stuff that's there.
Yeah.
So you were talking about your intent was to actually have nothing on Chase Street actually done.
Take out what's sidewalk that's there.
Or any other, they haven't got any other streets torn up that I know of, do you?
No, Chase Street's the last one.
That's it. So it'd be
So you're proposing,
Just not put any
moratorium
sidewalk
on new sidewalk
On Chase Street.
installations except for sidewalk damage through the storm.
So, yeah.
oh, so the sidewalk that we're replacing, the hazard sidewalk, we wouldn't do that either.
No, you would do that.
You said just the storm.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
With
The
hazard.
motion,
Like stuff that might have like settled and created trip hazards, those are replacements. If there's any of those out there that were set to be
Is
replaced.
that under the same contract?
No, we have a maintenance contract and we have a Public Works construction contract. There's basically two contracts for flat work.
Well, I guess that could be, that's maintenance. That's not,
So the moratorium would exclude hazard and storm.
yeah.
Is that clarification for you, Tom? I know you voted against it, so I guess,
Somebody could get hurt if there's a hazard.
oh, I agree, yeah. Okay, with that being said, item number 10, Director of Public Works report.
Yeah, so you have a copy of the report. It is also on the city's website. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
I just highlighted a couple things, Joe, on here, and just on the airport. You have on here MSA is and maybe it's been taken care of. MSA is having difficulty making the contractor return to finish the work.
I think there's a challenge on one of the previous phases of the construction. I don't know the details on that. I think it's some finished work, you know, some punch list type items. I do believe that money has been held out though, so the contractor hasn't been paid in full. That's my understanding.
And just garbage collection down, you know, almost 37 ton. Is that related to?
Yes. Yeah, you know, people aren't putting out the larger items, like taking that stuff to the
Okay.
landfill, right? So we're seeing reductions in tonnage, which is what we hoped, because
Yeah.
what we've proposed for next year's budget is to expand our street resurfacing program. In order to do that, we need some funds. That's where some of the funds are coming from, for those reduced tipping fees.
Okay. Can you provide the committee with what that, you know, that amounts to
Sure.
in dollars?
Yep.
Is it like 70,000 or something, did I hear? We've got
That's a
something
number
else?
from at some point in time. I don't know if that's.
That was,
How we
that's
got
what we
to
had
that.
projected.
Oh, okay.
But we have several months of actual, so I'll take that information and send a report to the alderpersons.
We also aren't collecting as many people as we once were too, so.
That's true. Well, I was that was in my mind, and not as many, yeah, I know why now. Now it registers when you say that, why. Okay.
Mr. Glazer.
Joe, this 1 Mile Creek thing, what's going on with that? Something about MSA to provide,
Yeah, that's-
I guess I'm not sure what they're looking at. To look at that 1 Mile Creek section, that's gonna be dredged over by Airport, Woodland area? Oh,
Yeah, 2 Mile.
2 Mile?
2 Mile Avenue between 2 Mile and Lincoln Street. There's where the water wheel was, those
Yep.
ponds there.
Fell
So
in them creeks many times growing up.
we had a neighborhood meeting with property owners in February of this year, and there was a bunch of questions and concerns that they had. We tried to reach out to the DNR and Army Corps to get some of that information. They provided some answers to those questions, but there's a lot of questions that we're just not going to be able to answer without taking the first step towards looking at a conceptual type plan for it. Doing some initial modeling, a few concept layout type plans. And so before we wanted to bring it back to the committee for action on expensing any dollars, we wanted to reassess with the property owners what's their level of engagement with the project.
And how are they feeling?
Nobody's against it. There's a couple that are fully in favor of it, and then most of the people are maybes, depending on the information. And so we're still waiting for a few people to provide feedback yet. And then as soon as we get it, we hope to bring it back to the committee.
Yeah, that's a very nice section from Airport to 2 Mile, because there are actual nice ponds in there. And it would be nice to see that cleaned up and.
Lincoln to 2 Mile, because from the portion of Airport to Lincoln, that's where that major flooding that occurs right over there with
Yeah.
those, going over the top of
That little-
Airport. There's 2 big culverts there. I don't know what the size, the 36, 48 inch, but it gets to the point in heavy floods where water is just about coming over the road there. So back in there from Airport to Lincoln, those couple properties are all washed out. It's
Yeah, we
pretty
used
bad.
to. When we were kids, we thought it was always a great idea during the winter when it froze to see how far we can shimmy on our bellies throughout all. It's pretty dumb, but.
Did you ever explore that stormwater pipes behind the airport where it's that heavy runoff area?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did that. How stupid we were not bringing a canary along with us or whatever else. Could have ended up dead in there.
That's good. I'm glad to see that there's interest, because it'd be nice to see that cleaned up and to serve its purpose for stormwater collection.
All right, we will go to item number 11, review referral list. And I noticed something that I didn't put on there, but we can quick go through it here. Do we want to, my notes always seem to, I don't know, sometimes I catch on, sometimes I don't. So discuss A Street, I know that's going to be a thing that we keep on talking about, so we'll keep that on there. Oliver Kellogg to discuss the cleanup program. I'll keep it on there for an essence of the large garbage pickup concept that Mr. Kellogg referred. Develop a street resurfacing program separate but complementary to chip seal and street replacement program. I'm sure Public Works and Engineering Department is still working on that with all the activities that we had going on. Request and review a multi-year capital improvements plan. We can discuss that at budget. Request to review areas of public access at and around Norton Pond. If that's still an ongoing thing, we'll keep this on there. Request to review amending ordinance wastewater treatment commission. How is that working? Are you still able to go to those
Yep, in
meetings?
fact, I was gonna mention either, well, if I remember, yeah, that meeting's tomorrow, I think,
Yep,
right?
correct.
I didn't know if you were around, I was gonna ask if you were around.
Today I could have went.
Okay.
We got rained
I
out.
know.
Tomorrow I got to be in Wapaka, so might still get rained out.
Yeah,
But
I think I can make it.
awesome. So I'll keep that on there until it doesn't work anymore, and then we got to figure it out. Request to review stormwater study for 1 Mile Creek from 16th Street to 2 Mile Avenue. I'm going to have a budget request for that. And then one thing I forgot, I don't know why, but review the turn lane situation on East Street and Chestnut Street. I know we had that as an agenda item last time, and I think that we asked staff to reach out to the DOT in terms of language as far as being able to change that, at least something. And it was kind of coincidental because it was 3 days ago, Kohler Trucking, who is bringing material to the aquatic center. I left and went to my house at lunch to pick up some tools, and I was coming back, and a big dump truck, quadra-axle dump truck, was turning at that location, going eastbound, turning southbound from Chestnut Street onto A Street, right in front of Dollar General there. And I was turning left because I was heading toward that way. And I stopped about 50 feet short of the intersection because I guess a little bit of awareness. I'm like, there's no way that this truck is going to be able to turn. And he didn't. He came pretty much almost halfway into that turn lane. So if I would have actually pulled all the way up, not seeing, he wouldn't have been able to turn. And it would have been like a deadlock because he is not going to go across the street onto a residential road. He's going to stay there. So it would have had to be, kind of a not cool situation. And by no means do I want to suggest that I'm a hero for I seeing that ahead of time, but I mean there's going to be potential situations, especially kind of like you mentioned. There's going to be Raptors games, aquatic center, skate park, all these different activities kind of going on at the same time, and it isn't just going to be 1 or 2 dump trucks. It's going to be a number of people. So hopefully that the DOT kind of gave back a favorable question. And if it's a case where all we got to do is just pay for new paint, that would be wonderful to learn.
Yep. We just talked to the DOT and just wrapped up the referral, so it's ready to come back to committee.
Well, wonderful. So in other words, it's ready that I can put it on the agenda for next meeting. Wonderful. So then that would be the last thing on the referral list. Is there any others that I missed or somehow?
We've revised that 21st place one.
How would you like it to say?
I think we could just leave it as it's request from Alderperson Blazer to connect this storm sewer to 21st place at the airport or something like that. Just however it was in the agenda today is fine. And we can let those people know that emailed. I just don't know what the solution is. I have to agree, because of the Grand Avenue being closed, I take Chestnut a lot more now. And it's very noticeable when I'm in my truck too, trying to turn right off of Chestnut to go south. It is tight.
We have the same size
Yeah, same
vehicle,
truck.
and I won't even change.
Yeah, I never- yeah.
I'll go straight because I don't have a.
Normally it's Randolph, and I just get off Chestnut. But
So what do you want to do with 21st place there?
revive that referral, I guess, because we're gonna have it on the meeting next
it
month
back.
to bring it back.
I knew there was something I want, no, there was something I just,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention it to see what we're gonna do for sure, because
I don't know what the
just
solution is on
postpone
it.
it till next month is,
Yeah, and I'll
I
let,
mean,
yeah, I'll let Eric
is there
know
some
and look
plan
at
that
it.
we have, or something other than,
I'm sure they're gonna come and looking for some kind of solution, which there just isn't one right now with the water and I think the question regarding, you know, the property ownership, that where it's sitting has been cleared up now that those are easements already, so I don't know. I just don't know.
Well, and ultimately find out what the exact situation is happening. Is it just the sump pump? Is it running two sump pumps? Is it actually infiltrating into, you know, through block wall? Or I know that there's groundwater elevation issues that was concerns and pumping that has been going on, but
And the blow off, I don't know, did they restart the blow off? Has that been going on, you know?
That's a good question. I'm not sure where that sits.
Yeah, because I know that was a concern, you know, dumping that into the ground. But right
that's-
now it's just saturated, and I think it's pretty obvious by your report or information from Water and Light is the groundwater is exceptionally high over the history of it, you know?
highest
And next year it could be the lowest, you just don't know.
In the, kind of the central sands area part of the state, 1 inch of rainfall will result in 3 to 4 inches of groundwater, just because the soil particles take up space, right? So, you know, we get a 3-inch rainfall, that's a foot of additional water.
Wow.
Well, and Adams County is completely flooding. I know that
Oh,
they
yeah,
were.
I see down on 13 by, like Beaver down there, they're retrenching and putting culvert in and.
Between Rome and Big Flats.
Yeah,
there, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really wet down there.
And that's sand country, so it should go straight down, but the water table's so high that there's nowhere for it to
Yeah,
go.
the water
that's
table
what
is above the
I
ground.
was just wondering what we were looking at,
I don't
to have
know,
on the agenda for next, how to be worded next month for on the agenda for what we'd be looking at
I don't.
accomplishing, if anything, or how it'd be on there, or is it more so just for discussion and to listen?
Maybe so, because I'd be curious to see.
You know, so it may not be to make any
Right,
decision other than we can't do anything or something, you know.
yeah, and maybe the homeowners will come say, hey, we dried out, it's a little wet now, but it's better,
Yeah.
ideally.
Well, and that's the question, is where is the bedrock with the topography underneath? I mean, it could be where that area just slopes down and that's a collection area. You know, it could be bedrock, different levels with the different soils and everything else, and where does that go? And if that's a case where it's kind of a crater area where the groundwater can't just naturally flow in I guess, in an avenue toward the river, or any other, you know, type of valleys like that, yeah. But if there is a decision made in terms of like identifying whether it's strategically feasible to create a groundwater pumping system, you know, I don't know. On one of the particular projects that I'm working at, there is a very comprehensive pumping project, but it's because we got to go way into the ground for it. But I mean, realistically, for, you know, a municipality to do that, I don't know. You know, and is the scarier part is, like what Doug brought up, is that is this just the beginning of the city in terms of area where other people are going to be affected? Are we going to continue to have more precipitation than we have in the past? You know, and whether people agree with climate change or not, I believe that there is fundamentally different changes that have occurred in the last 20 years since I was in high school. Weather patterns are different, and do we have to look at different ways in homeownership and other services that we provide as a municipality? So, yeah. I don't know. I know that there's a lot more smarter people than me, so.
I got a couple
Yeah.
questions. Does the committee here get involved in the budget? Do you have to submit to the mayor or to these RC items that you want included in the budget?
We just talked about this.
Huh?
We just talked about this in finance. And so, yeah,
And then my second question is, have you proposed projects that you would like to see done in 2020 already to the committee?
So a capital improvement plan was
Yeah.
developed, a 5-year plan. And I think all of the 2020 projects have already gone through a preliminary resolution process. Because it takes, a year and a half to do the preliminary survey, do the design work. And we're not comfortable work ordering the staff to start doing that investigative work if it's a project that the city isn't interested in. So we do have a 5-year capital improvement plan, and I think all of our 2020 stuff is got preliminary resolutions. I think some of the 2021 might also.
Yeah, maybe two or three.
But we'll go through that process. That process comes through this committee.
So the committee can recommend
Absolutely.
changes to it? that-
Well, and anything that the staff brings before the mayor, when it comes time for the financial review of the budget, the council sets the budget. So.
but if you have something, I would probably talk to Joe. So it's not all of a sudden just at a budget meeting.
Yeah.
Joe hears about it, you might want
No,
to.
I haven't got anything, I just
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
know how it
It's,
works.
So let's-
it's done a lot different, Bud, than it was years ago.
Let's try to get
Here's a-
together
here-
in the next several
yeah.
days, and I'll get you the approved one from last year, and I can get you what we've got so far for this year.
Okay.
If it's any benefit for me to offer my opinion, any of my suggestions for the last couple budget processes, nothing was taken into consideration. So that's my perspective of it. So like Tom alluded to, things are different than what kind of control the
Yes, sir.
council had before.
It's done different. It is.
So with that being said, is there any other items for the referral list that anyone wants to see or things or anything? Otherwise, with that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Rayom, second by Brzezinski to adjourn the meeting at 8:14 p.m.
Close enough.
Thank you.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, but yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, meeting is adjourned.